Welcome to the Three or More podcast. My name is Mauricio, aka Mauri, and I'm joined by Melissa Turner today, and we are going to be discussing her testimony. She has done a lot of work with women's mental health, helping them overcome mental health illnesses and just trauma. I believe church hurt as well, and things like that. So, first, I want to get into how you came to Christ, what that looked like for you. What was it ultimately? Were you raised in church? Were you not raised in church? All that cool stuff
Okay.
that leads you there. So
Okay. Well, thank you for having me. When I was born, my family did not go to church. And when I was 7.5 years old, my papa died from a stroke. And he was 51 years old. To a 7-year-old, that seemed really old. I was like, you know, very sad. But now that I'm almost 40, I realize exactly how young he was and what an impact that had. And so it was not until he passed away that we started going to church. And so we went to the church that was closest to where we were living at the time. And that is how I got started and how I came to know Jesus. And that church had something called missionettes, and they had Royal Rangers for the boys. So being in those classes, that's how I learned about Jesus. And this is something I wish I could remember more about being saved. I know I did. I clearly remember my baptism because it was in the mid-90s. And I don't know if you remember the windbreaker windsuits that were very popular back then. I don't know. I guess they didn't tell us what we were supposed to wear, but I remember, wearing that. And when I walked out and went outside, like I took my hands and like wrung the water out of my pants. So I definitely remember the baptism piece, but I have been in church ever since. And so my faith has really grown a lot more so in the last 10 years. My husband, when we first started dating, he said he was going to be a lawyer, which my mom was really excited about. And then halfway through his undergrad, he changed course and he went into the ministry. And so I am a pastor's wife, and that's a whole nother conversation.
yeah,
But I had read the Bible and memorized a lot of scriptures as a child growing up in church. But again, it was really the last 10 years where my faith has really grown because of a tragedy in my family.
okay, I got you. Just to back up a little bit, as far as like when you were 7 years old and your papa passed away,
Mhm.
um, was that what led your parents? Was that what led them to start going to church? Was the loss of that of your grandfather?
Yeah, well, I mean, they never grew up going to church. Not my mom, my dad, my stepdad. None of them had ever gone to church. I remember when I was young, maybe going to some Bible schools, but it was not until his death that we started going to church on a regular basis.
I got you. Okay, yeah, it's kind of it's kind of something like there's always like a catalyst for some reason that has to
Yeah.
happen. People, to make them like, let me rethink my life. and
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but so as far as like when you were, going to that church, so you do you remember? Because I know you said you were 7 years old. I mean, I can't remember. That's last week. So, you
Yeah.
were 7 years old. Do you remember like the moment that you gave your life to Jesus or anything like that?
I don't. And that's, some people really that sticks out to them, or they even have like a date or maybe like a certificate or something.
Yeah, give you the time
But
and
I
everything.
really don't. Yeah. I hate that I don't, but I do remember the baptism. But
So I got like me personally, I've been in and out of church my whole life. My mom was.
yeah.
I remember her. I don't remember her getting saved. I remember her
Yeah.
like coming home, and then this guy and this lady came with her, and they were pastors, and she just met in the street, and
Yeah.
yeah, and they were praying for her in our house, and then she starts crying, and I'm like five or six or something like that, and I remember asking them what they're doing to my mom. I
Yeah.
remember, but
Yeah.
so it's been in and out of church my whole life, and uh, So I don't have a specific like other people I meet, and I'm kind of envious of them because they're like, yeah, man, on December
Yeah, me
15th,
too.
I'm like, oh man, I don't have that. But
Yeah.
no, but yeah, it's serious. As far as like you mentioned the tragedy, you had a major loss, and you said
Mhm.
that kind of like catapulted you into what you're doing now. Can you
Yes.
walk us kind of through that and what happened?
Yeah, so it was Friday, November 30th of 2018, and at the time, I was working at CVS as a pharmacist, and I had gone in to work early, like I'd always done, getting things ready for the day, and I get that phone call that changes everything, and it was a coworker of my mom's calling to tell me that my mom had just found out that my sister had been shot and killed by my uncle in my grandma's house. And he had also killed her boyfriend as well. And 5 days later, on what should have been Katie, my sister's 26th birthday, is the day that we had her funeral and said goodbye. And so for probably 2 or 3 years after that, I cycled through anxiety and depression and suicidal thoughts. And I was mad at God. I didn't want to talk to him. I didn't want to hear what he had to say and, blamed him and uh, just all of those feelings. It was a
Yeah,
very dark time.
yeah,
And so I tried to fix myself on my own, and it took a long time for me to get here, but now I see that, of course, God didn't cause that tragedy to happen, but He can take that and turn something good out of it. And I
yeah,
think if Katie had to die, I want something good to come out of it. And so I can never get her back, but I can help other women and help to bring them peace and to help them when they go through those difficult things too. And so my theme verse for my business is from 2 Corinthians 1, verses 3 and 4, where it says, God is the God of all comfort, and He brings us comfort so that then we can bring that comfort to others. And so that's what I'm doing.
man, that's pretty awesome that you took that tragedy in your life, and I'm sure it took you. It wasn't like an overnight thing, right? It
Oh,
kind of took you
yes.
some. So,
Yes.
so you turned that into with the Lord, turn that into something that
Oh,
will help
yes.
others.
Yeah.
So one thing I wanted to, you mentioned that you were mad at God, and so like, what did that look like for you? 'Cause I know certain people it looks different, but for you, what does it look
Yeah.
like?
It was not reading my Bible. I was not praying. I didn't want to hear what he had to say. If he had something to say, I didn't want to hear it. Um, I would come to church, after Katie died, I was still at CVS for almost 3 more years. And so with that, I worked every other weekend, every other holiday. So I could only be at church every other Sunday. And so I was just showing up and going through the motions, being the pastor's wife. If you miss a few Sundays, people start to wonder and they notice when you're not here. And so I was just, showing up, putting the smile on my face and acting like everything was okay when it really wasn't.
It makes me wonder, like being a man, right? So it makes me wonder, and I'm not a pastor, but it makes me wonder how your husband, like, did he, like, was he gracious with you in this time? Like, was he able to like kind of help navigate? Did he help you navigate all this while you're going through it? You know what I mean? Like, was he a big help in all that?
Yeah, I know that God's put the two of us together. You know, that was planned long ago. And we are, we couldn't imagine, living without each other and doing life together. So, yes, he was wonderful through all of that. It was very hard for him to watch me go through that and not really know how to help me. And
Yeah,
even if he did, I didn't want his help. Again, I'm the oldest daughter. I'm the, do it, Miss Independent. I got this. I can figure this out on my own. So, even if he tried to help me, I'm sure I was very resistant. I also numbed my pain with alcohol. I was able to hide that from pretty much everybody except him. I couldn't wait to get home from my shift and drink that bottle of wine and, I might go through a bottle every couple of days, and, he prayed for me and helped me the best that he could. But yeah, he really helped me a lot to get through those years, and to support me, and um, just be there for me.
And that's beautiful. Yeah, advice that I would give to anybody, uh, specifically women, that get you a godly man. You know what I mean?
Yes.
One that
Yes.
knows what it means to lay down your life. That's Jesus Christ laid down his life for the church. Like I think that's a very,
Yes.
very important thing. But so you also mentioned that um, because you're a pastor's wife, that kind of puts you in a position where like you're pretty much full time ministry, even if you have a job
Yeah.
and stuff. So you mentioned that you would miss church here and there, but you did go every other Sunday. Um,
Right.
what did that look like? Like, were you still, like, were people still coming to you, like, for advice? Were they still trying to reach out to you as the pastor's wife?
Well, when we first started at the church, and we're still here now, we just celebrated in February, it was 15 years. So when we started, I was in pharmacy school and finishing up. I had 3 more years. And so Chris sort of set the expectations, right to begin with, that I'm not going to be a typical pastor's wife. I'm not going to be here every Sunday or every Wednesday, or, at all, the special events. Um, and so I think that really helped, um, to have that right to start with. But yeah, I've grown a lot once I was able to leave the pharmacy. That really helped, and I've been able to grow in how I'm able to minister to women here at the church and outside of it through my business.
So then get moving into that, right? Moving into what you're doing today. Like, so
Mhm.
what about what you went through, you know, with your sister's loss? Like, what about that had you move into this area to where now you're helping others, kind of move through grief, move through hurt, move through pain, and all these things like that?
Mhm. Yeah. So when I first started out, I was doing genetic testing for medications because that had been my background in pharmacy. And I'd seen people take medicines that didn't work or cause side effects. And I learned about this genetic testing. I was like, this is really cool. We should be doing this for everyone. And so that's what I first started doing. And then about a year later, I added genetic testing for nutrition and wellness to see, what's going on inside your body, what vitamins do you really need, all these different things. And I did that for probably about 3 or 4 years. And it gave people really good information, but it wasn't actually changing their lives. It was not life transforming for them. It was just more good information. There were a lot of roadblocks as well, as far as what I could do as a pharmacist, if medicines need to be changed. And throughout that time, I felt God calling me to bring my faith into my business. And I was like, I don't know. The devil was like, no, you don't do that. No one wants to hear about that. You won't have any, customers. If you talk about your faith, you need to keep those two separate. But, during this time, I'm growing closer to the Lord. I get my own Bible, and I'm taking notes, and I'm learning, and I'm studying, and I'm reading. I'm starting to teach more in Sunday school and a women's group that I started. And I was like, I just can't not bring my faith in. I can't keep this quiet. And so I brought that in, and eventually, it was about a year ago, I was like, I'm done with the genetic testing. And it really started when I started working with my own nervous system coach. And I started learning about how our body is always acting in the interest of keeping us alive, keeping us safe. And so the things that have happened in our past, the losing Katie, some abuse that I had as a child, different things like that, how they've stayed with me, how I thought in my mind, oh, I've gotten over them. I'm past that. That's already over with. But I was still carrying it. And it was affecting how I was showing up as a wife, as a friend, as a business owner, as a coach, as a follower of Jesus. And so once I started bringing that healing and growing in my faith, I was like, this is what I have to do. And last summer I did a 3-day boot camp, and it was for women, and we looked at the different lies that we believe about ourselves. One of them being, I'm not worthy, and looking at it from a nervous system and a faith piece. And I walked one of the women through a nervous system exercise, and it took less than 10 minutes. And there were tears. She was crying. I was crying. You could see the release, the weight that was lifted off of her because of what we were able to do and the things that we were able to talk through. And after it was over, she said, I've spent years in therapy and thousands of dollars on therapy, and no one has been able to get to the root of my unworthiness like you did. And it took less than 10 minutes. And that was like, ding, that's it. This is what I have to do. The genetic testing is fine, but this is what changes people's life. And so after that, she was able to speak up for herself at work. She was able to ask for help without, feeling guilty. Just so many other things she's been able to, that she's always wanted to do, but she, held herself back because she didn't feel like she was worthy enough to be able to do those things.
Yeah, man, that's really powerful. A lot of it because that's also the gospel, right? So, like, I heard certain pastors, they'll say things like, the value of something is determined by the price that's paid for it, right? So you're not going to spend $2 million on a beat up old junky car, right?
Yeah.
So in the same sense, like, God is not going to pay the price of his only begotten son for people who are not worthy. You know what I mean? And so, and mind you, I'm not saying that we're superhuman or nothing like that, but like the fact that God loves us so much, like that in itself determines the value that we carry just as human beings. And I think that's a very important part of the work that you do, is allowing women to realize like their value, their worth, and not just in the world, but in Christ himself. So touching on that, how much of it is actually like like a change of a mindset, like a change of a mentality? Like, how much of what you do deals with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely about the mindset shift, but it's really even getting deeper than that. Like, how did we get here? What's at the root? And so you'll see that through a lot of the courses and programs that I offer, is getting to the root cause. Like, and that was something that always bothered me as a pharmacist, is doctors are just, a lot of times, not everyone, but just giving out medicines, and we're never asking, well, how did we get here? Like, why is this happening? Why? I don't want to just put a Band-Aid on it. And you can do, affirmations and mindset shifts, but if you don't get to how we got here, the cycle will just keep repeating.
As far as you and what you do, like, what is the most common like thing that you notice, like the biggest obstacle that you have noticed as far as all the help that you've been giving out?
I would definitely say, for me, it's the unhealed trauma that people have. And sometimes it's even things that people don't recognize, and they'll just be talking. And I had this happen earlier in the year. I was doing a group coaching program, and she was just telling me about something that happened in her childhood. And I was like, wait a minute, wait, pause. We got to go back. Did you hear what you just said? I was like, that's why this is happening. She was like, oh. And then like the light bulb goes off, and it's like, okay. So, and sometimes people like, oh, I had a great childhood, and nothing really bad ever happened, but it can be those micro little things. And so being able to help them see that, and to be able to bring healing into that, to bring God into that healing, that's very powerful.
So my wife has cancer, that she has breast cancer that metastasized and spread all over her body. So I think at one point she had over 120 tumors in her body.
Oh my
She had
gosh.
like 60 in her lungs, stuff like that. Anywho, I noticed that she deals a lot with this, what you're talking about not feeling worthy. Like, you know what I mean? She's also is scared to ask for help. Like, things like that. And so,
Yeah.
um, not to put her business out there, but so, um, like, what would you say would be the best way to, like, as a husband, like me myself, like, what would be the best way for me to try to
Mhm.
help her navigate those thoughts and those feelings that she has as far as like not being worthy?
Yeah. So obviously, as your shirt says, praying. Can I pray for you? Yeah. Always want to have prayer. Um, because God sees, God knows everything that's going on. Um, but for her, asking, where did this start? Was there a time when you asked for help and maybe you didn't get it or someone helped you? And like for me, I don't know if your wife is the same way, but I always was like, I can do this. I'll do this. Or, if I ask for help and then they do it wrong, then I've got to redo it when I could have just done it myself the first time and it would have been done right. Right.
Yeah.
Um, and so, my coach had to teach me, Melissa, like, if you're always doing it, if you're never asking for help, then you're taking on more than what God has called you to do. Is there something that you can release back to God, something He's never even asked you to do or asked you to carry?
Yeah.
If someone offers help, saying yes and just seeing how it goes, or asking for help. And if they do it wrong, it's okay. Maybe that's an opportunity to teach them. Maybe I didn't communicate well, and that's why it didn't turn out right. So what was it that I need to do? So there's a lot of different layers, for why that could be happening. And then something that I've learned is the 1% shift. So what is one small thing I can do? Because a lot of times we want to, have this like complete 180 and turn everything around and everything is completely different. Well, no, we got here slowly over time. So we've got to work slowly forward in our healing. So is there one small thing she can ask you or, a friend to do that she could just release? Like, okay, I can give this. And, doing those small little things over time, that's what builds your momentum and to be able to release and to let go of that need to control.
I gotcha. Awesome. Then I know that was me being selfish. I was trying to
Oh,
get some
that's
advice.
good. Yeah.
That hopefully it helps somebody watching. But yeah. So as far as your walk with the Lord and what you're doing, so how has this work that you do, how has this motivated you more into the Lord? How has this like grown you closer to the Lord and what you're doing?
Yeah. Well, I never thought I would own my own business. And when I left the pharmacy, left my 6-figure salary behind, I had no idea what I was doing. And, I took some courses and like how to start your own business and things like that. But this, being a small business owner, will really test your faith and your trust in the Lord. Um, One, the perfectionism in me, people pleasing, the control, um, having to let that go, to trust God, to have faith in Him, to be able to talk to Him and be like, hey, this is what I need. And if not, God, you are still good. So, um, He continues to show me over and over, I'm still here. I'm listening. I love you and I care about you and things will happen at the right time when it is ready. So, being able to teach others about Jesus, about faith, about trusting God, I need to be able to do that first myself. And so it's just been a big help in growing my faith and having this business and being able to help other women and being able to be like, there's only so much I can do and I've got to give them to God as well for Him to be able to help them. I can't fix everything about them. That's also been a big shift for me because I want to fix and I want to make everything right, but I can't.
Yeah, I got you, man. So yeah, I'm noticing like dependency that you have on the Lord is a major part of what you do. Um,
Yes.
so in your work, right, with what you do with helping people out. So what has been is I'm not sure, you can't really like talk about specifics, but like what has been like the most anything, or have you ever had anything that's kind of like had you taken it back, like whoa, like that's it's a bit that's a bit out there. Have you ever had anything or a case where you kind of just been like, man, this was really tough. Like this was really, it's even causing you to get kind of trained and tired or exhausted on it. So is there anything
Oh,
that's
yeah.
ever been like,
Yeah. And so that was another reason why I shifted in what I was doing, because I would have people who would like book a discovery call, and I would talk to them for 30, 45 minutes, an hour. And they'd be like, oh, I want to do this. And then you send them the invoice to pay and you never hear from them again. Or they buy like a 3 or 6 month package. They get halfway through. They need to reschedule one session. You're like, okay, that's fine. And then they ghost you. You never hear from them again. And so I was like, what is going on? Like, there's something else. There's again those deeper layers, those roots. Like, what is going on? I wanted to be able to get to those roots and to be able to help people with that. Those fears of commitment, or I'm not worthy to find my healing. What's really going on? So I've had that. I wouldn't say I've had anyone that has been difficult. I will say, and this shocked someone not too long ago at a networking event I went to, when I said, I don't work with everybody. And she was like, and I was like, yeah, I mean, in my line of work, at least, I don't work with just anybody.
yeah,
Because I've found that, you know, you can have really great conversations, but, I want to work with people who want their healing more than I do. I can't want it more than you do. And so I'm going to be here for you. I'm going to show up for you, but you have to do the work. And so I'm discerning about who I work with. And there is sometimes when I tell people, I don't think you're the best fit for me, or, I can recommend someone else, but I have done that as well.
yeah, that takes a lot of wisdom. Like I don't think, like, if I
Yeah.
was in your, or if I decided to do something like what you're doing, I don't think I would have the, at first, the wisdom to like kind of be able to take people out, like, all right, yeah, I think I'd be like, yeah, everybody can come on, but
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. When I first started, I would take anybody that would pay. And that cost me because then they didn't follow through because they weren't really invested. So, yeah.
that's good to learn. It's good to like have that already, like, and I guess
Yeah.
that comes with the experience that you have. So for anybody watching, that's going to be watching this, what would be your biggest advice that you would give to somebody, like anybody that's going through any kind of trauma, or something like kind of what you went through? What would be the biggest advice that you can give to them that would help them kind of move forward?
Yeah. I would say that there is hope, there is healing available, and to ask for help, because healing doesn't happen in isolation. It happens in community, in friendships, in relationships, in working with a coach, whether it's me or someone else, to be able to have that objective view, to be able to help you to see what's going on, to be able to see what your roadblocks are, what may be the thing in front of you that you can't even see for yourself. And so for your listeners, I would like to share a free resource that I've created. It's called the Survival Mode Assessment. And it has some questions that people can answer, and it looks at 4 different areas. So your mind, your body, your relationships, and your spiritual life. And so you'll answer those questions. And then at the end, it'll give you a score and let you know, is my body in survival mode, or am I, in peace? Is my body trying to protect me from something? And what's the severity? And then no matter what your score is, you get a one faith-based step that you can take to bring safety back into your body. And so I will share that with you so that you can share it with your listeners, and they can take that assessment and see where they are and get that faith-based step to be able to help them where they are.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. We'll put that down in the description, put the link in there and all that. Awesome. That sounds great. So not to like shift focus or anything like that, but I don't know if you've been familiar or have seen all the like exposure uh, of ministries and stuff like the what's his name, Mike Winger and the inspiring philosophy guys. They're kind of like talking about abuses, by leaders in the church and stuff like that. Yeah. And there's a lot of women that have been hurt. That I've seen a lot of manipulation by leaders and things like that. When it comes to things like that, have you come across any like specific church hurt in that sense where there's a woman that's being lied to by a leader in the church, and they're manipulating her to like for sexual things and stuff like that? Have you come across anything in that sense?
I have not. I've not had anyone come to me about that or seen that. Not yet.
Okay. Yeah, I just wonder because I've seen a lot of like different like weird situations. There was like this guy Sean Bowles. He was like claiming to be a prophet, but he would go on Facebook and do data mining and get people's information, and then stand up on stage and act like he was getting the revelation from God and stuff like that. So yeah, and which I used to follow him. I used to watch his stuff and read his books and all this like that. And it's kind of like, man, like what? You know what I mean? It kind of like discourages me a little bit. At the same time, like, I recognize that it's all about God. So this man might falter, but it's still God is still in control. So when it comes to abuses in the church, do you have any kind of like, I don't know, advice, or like, do you deal with like red flags? Like, hey, look out for this, look out for that.
I don't have anything, since I haven't dealt with that. But when you're talking about that particular guy, and I love how God works. So starting in the fall, I could lead a group called Women of Purpose, and we're going to be teaching and talking about giving our testimony. Because, I mean, you asked me, I gave it earlier, but it's like, was that a good testimony? Like, should it be different? Should I, what do you say? And so we're going to be looking at how to give our testimony, because I feel like that's something all of us should be able to do. But in preparing for it this summer, and I can't remember the verse, but Paul said in one of his gospels that he didn't care, who was preaching, even if it was, for ulterior motives, because the gospel still has the power to save. So we may not like how they're, the other stuff that they're doing, but because God is in the gospel, he has the power for it to come out and be good. So I just,
I think that's in Philippians where he says that, what does it matter if the gospel is being preached or something like that? But so I get that, but good, man. And so, I mean, do you deal with other forms of like church hurt or anything like that, or it's just mostly like trauma, like from life? Is that basically?
Yeah.
Okay. That's good. And I mean, I know there's various forms of trauma, but what is like one of the most common ones that you deal with when it comes to like women and the traumas that they've experienced? It's causing them to like not be where they should be.
I would definitely say, there's physical abuse, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, but a lot of it is the things that happened in their childhood, maybe things that happened in their home with their parents, with their grandparents, things that they witnessed, things that they heard, or, had to go through loss, traumatic loss, like with Katie. I have a friend who we are bonded over things. I love her and she's one of my dear friends, but I wish we didn't have this bond of we both lost our dad and we both lost one of our siblings at a young age. And neither of us were there to be able to say goodbye to our siblings. So things like that really stick with you if you don't get to have that closure. So that can be very hurtful. And stay with women. So
Yeah, that's a like loss. I think it's a big, uh, it's a hard thing to navigate. Just losing somebody, and then to deal with it from the standpoint of being a believer, it kind of gets a little, in the weeds because you have certain, like maybe a ministry will tell you, well, that, God's will, it's God's will to take about, and it's like, well, was it, like,
yeah, that was something that really bothered me after Katie died. Was people like, oh, she's in a better place, she's in heaven. I'm like, I don't want her to be in heaven. I want her to be here. I don't.
yeah,
Please stop. So that's why I never say. Very, very, very rarely, I guess I should say, ever say that to people. Oh, they're in a better place. Well, no, because I'm not there. I mean, I know that came with time, but that's not what I wanted to hear. So, yeah.
yeah, and that's, like if you just, like even reading Job experienced a lot of loss.
Yeah.
And one thing that I've always found interesting is that whenever the fire from heaven comes, right, and destroys his family and everything, his kids, the servant comes and he says, fire from God came down and killed your entire family. But if you read it closely, but it wasn't God that sent the fire. It was the enemy that set the fire, but God takes the blame. And it's like, man, so I think a lot of times we don't realize that, like sometimes, man, it's because we're in a fallen world, because this is,
yeah.
nature. Like we're gonna deal with things, and like I don't think it would be fully fair to just blame God for everything.
Right. Right.
I think it's wrong to see somebody who's experienced the loss of a sibling or child or whoever, and then tell them, well, you don't know God's plan. It's like, this is God's plan. It's like, man, I don't think it was,
Yeah.
So toughest things to navigate. And I think a lot of people do, like I've heard atheists that the reason that they're atheists is because they prayed that their grandma wouldn't die, and their grandma dies anyways. And so there must not be a God, and it's like, well, it's a lot of it. It's that taught, that we're like, hey, God's in full control, so everything that happens is His will, and it's like, well, I don't think that's correct. But anywho, so I'm getting off on a tangent here.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
I mean, we still have the free will. We have the choice. So God can want us to do something, but when presented, do you want to do this or do you want to do that? And it's up to us. So.
Yeah, ultimately. And but yeah, man, it's a like I said, tough one to navigate would be the loss of somebody. As far as childhood trauma, which I wanted to ask you this before, but I kept my brain went scattered. As far as childhood trauma, how do you see that manifested in adults today? Like something that they experienced years ago. Like what are some of the signs, or not, I won't say symptoms, but some of the signs that they're dealing with it, they just don't know it?
Yeah. Well, it's very different for everyone as far as, what it was, how long did it last, what is their life like today? And I'll just share, just one thing for me. There was some abuse that I experienced as a child, and there's two different things. So one with a family member, and like I didn't tell anyone about it because I was embarrassed. I was afraid of what would happen or if it would get worse. There was another time, not at home, and I did speak up about it. And my mom called the other friend's mom where it happened, and the friend denied it. And so my nervous system was like, hey, it's not safe to speak up. And so instead of, putting myself out there, so that stayed with me for years, decades. And so I've always been the quiet one. Like, I'm not going to be the first to speak up. I don't want to be on a stage and have everyone looking at me. That is terrifying to me because my nervous system learned that speaking up using my voice was dangerous. And so to protect myself, I don't speak up. And so my coach had to help me see that. And once we started talking about it immediately, like sometimes when I talk about it, like my throat closes up, like I have trouble almost swallowing because that's where it lives. And so working through that, being able to release that pain, uh, to bring forgiveness to that person, not that I'm going to restore that relationship, but to be able to release that so that it's not draining all my energy. And I can use the voice that God has given me because I do have a message. I need to tell other people about Jesus, to share the gospel, but I can't do that if I'm, stuck and afraid and in hiding. So that's just one way that abuse can show up, or trauma, and you don't even realize it. But that's the power of a coach and what they can help you through.
And that's very powerful. That whole, just like I've never thought of it that way, but just to something that could hold you back from when you were a child to keep you from speaking out. You know what I mean? I'm just using my brain here, but like even to the point where like sharing the gospel openly might be a bad thing for you. You know what I mean? Like you might not be able to do it correctly.
Yeah. My nervous system is like, danger, danger. Don't open your mouth. Remember what happened the last time you were rejected? They didn't believe you. And why do people not share the gospel? Because they're afraid of not being heard, being rejected, asked a question that they don't know the answer to. So we just keep quiet. We don't say anything. But that's what we're going to help our women with this semester.
Yeah, for sure, man. That's great. I really don't have any more like questions for you at this point. I can't think of nothing else. My notes are pretty much. I kind of covered everything. Sometimes I didn't even ask you, just said it. So, yeah, man. Is there? I know you got a YouTube channel and all that as well. I've been checking out your stuff on there. Is there any other way that people can reach you? Do you have any other ways?
Yep. So I have my business is Turnaround Wellness. So you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Turnaround Wellness NC for North Carolina. That's where I live. And then I also have a website, turnaroundwellness.com. And I'll also share the free survival mode assessment with you to take.
Awesome. That's great, man. I fully appreciate you. Like, this has been one of the best conversations I've had in a long time. Now working in the oil field, I spend 12 hours alone most of the time. So,
gosh.
Like,
I like a long time, but maybe not that much.
Yeah, I'm on that. Just out there by myself, and then it's hard to come by fellowship, and it's hard to come by other believers out here, in this roughneck part of the world. But yeah, so it's always a pleasure to have another believer on with me, and to fellowship, even if it's just a few minutes. But I fully appreciate you. Thank you for your time. Do you have any books or anything that you've written? I don't know if you thought about writing a book, but do you have any books or anything?
Yes. Yeah, I am working on a book. It's called Rooted in Prayer. And I am taking the 6 parts of the Lord's Prayer. And those are my main teaching chapters. And with each chapter, I will share a story from my life. Some of them are funny. Some of them are more serious. I do talk about the abuse I was alluding to earlier and go into more details about that. And so God told me, because of the 6 chapters, that it's going to be published in my 6th year of business, which will start in this September. So that is what I want to happen, to be able to get that into the hands of women, because that was something I really struggled with when I was like, okay, God, I need to come back. I know I need to get closer to you, but prayer was really hard for me. And I was like, what do I say? And I feel like I keep saying the same thing. So I'm just not going to say anything. And so I talk about that and teach on, different ways to pray. How can you pray, different things like that, because it's a book I wish I would have had.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I always when I try to create content, I'm always like, "Now, what do I wish that I had when I was younger? To when I was
Yeah.
early walk with the faith." But yeah, it's good. Again, fully appreciate you coming on. This has been a real blessing for me, and I hope it's been the same for you. I
Yes.
fully appreciate it. So, thank you, and I'll let you get out of here. All right.
All right. Thank you.